Megan, everyone's staying home due to the snowstorm. The roads are too dangerous to drive. Christmas dinner is cancelled. Stay safe and warm. My mother Elaine's text glowed on my phone screen. I stared at it, feeling a knot of disappointment in my chest, but I nodded to myself with reluctant understanding. Winter weather in this part of the country could turn treacherous quickly. What I couldn't possibly know then was that this seemingly innocent message would unravel years of family deception and completely transform my life. My name is Megan, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a hospital administrator, and until last Christmas, I believed I was simply the odd one out in my family, the serious, career-focused sister who never quite meshed with their boisterous social gatherings. My younger sister, Heather, was always the golden child, the one who could do absolutely no wrong in our parents' eyes. Just yesterday, Heather had messaged me, getting everything ready for tomorrow. Can't wait to see everyone. I'd spent the past week carefully preparing handmade gifts for everyone, knitted scarves for my parents, a personalized photo album for my grandmother, and special bath products I knew Heather would love. Each gift wrapped with care, a silent plea for their approval. That Christmas morning, resigned to spending the holiday alone, I arranged my small house for a solitary celebration. I made myself a large mug of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, queued up my favorite holiday movies, and tried desperately to maintain a positive attitude despite the hollow feeling in my chest. I even put on the festive sweater I'd planned to wear to the family gathering, as if dressing the part might somehow make me feel less alone. Around 3 p.m., while nursing my second cup of cocoa, I absent-mindedly scrolled through Facebook when my stomach dropped like an elevator in free fall. A live video was playing from my cousin Jessica's account, Perfect Family Christmas at Heather's. #blessed, #family traditions, #perfect Christmas. The timestamp showed it had started streaming just 20 minutes ago. The video panned across my entire family, Douglas and Elaine, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my elderly grandmother who couldn't travel in this weather, all gathered around Heather's trendy downtown apartment dining table. They were laughing, wearing coordinated holiday sweaters, raising glasses in a toast. The camera then moved toward the large floor-to-ceiling windows, showing a completely clear day outside, bright sunshine glinting off parked cars with not a single snowflake in sight. There was no storm. There never had been. My hands trembled violently as I clicked through more posts. Jessica's Instagram stories showed my father Douglas carving the turkey with practiced precision, my mother arranging her signature Christmas cookies on the antique platter I'd given her last year, my nieces and nephews tearing through presents. Then came a notification, a friend texting, "Aren't you with your family today? Just saw Jessica's posts." I immediately took screenshots of everything, the messages, the posts, the clear blue sky visible through Heather's apartment windows. The dangerous snowstorm was a complete fabrication, a convenient excuse crafted to avoid telling me directly that I wasn't welcome at their picture-perfect family Christmas. A wave of nausea washed over me as the truth crystallized in my mind. All those canceled family brunches, those spontaneous weekend gatherings I'd missed, how many had actually happened without me? The birthday dinner 2 months ago that was postponed due to my father's work emergency that somehow resolved in time for everyone but me to attend? The summer barbecue that was rained out despite the sunny photos that appeared on my sister's Instagram the very same day? How long had they been orchestrating this elaborate system of exclusion while pretending to care about my feelings? The next morning, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I answered, my throat tight with hurt and anger. "Hi, sweetheart." Elaine's voice chirped with rehearsed cheerfulness. "Hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas by yourself. We really missed having you there. This snowstorm was just dreadful, wasn't it?" The casual cruelty of her words, layered atop the blatant lie, made my free hand clench into a tight fist. My knuckles turned white as I stared at Jessica's Facebook posts still open on my laptop, undeniable evidence of their perfect family gathering from which I had been deliberately excluded. Phone call with Elaine, really? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Because Jessica's social media posts show everyone having a wonderful time at Heather's apartment. Everyone except me. The silence on the other end stretched so long I almost checked if the call had dropped. I could picture my mother's face perfectly, that familiar expression she gets when caught in a lie, eyes darting slightly, lips pursed while her mind races to formulate excuses. "Oh, well," she finally stammered, her voice suddenly higher-pitched. "Heather organized it last minute after the weather report changed, and you know how you can be at family gatherings, Megan, always so quiet and making everyone uncomfortable with your intensity. We just thought." "Thought what?" I pressed, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. "That it would be better to deliberately lie to me? To make me spend Christmas completely alone while pretending everyone else was doing the same? To coordinate an elaborate deception involving the entire family?" "Don't be so dramatic," my mother sighed with that dismissive tone I knew all too well. "We were trying to spare your feelings and avoid any awkwardness. You know how important it was to Heather that everything be perfect for her Instagram. The lighting in her photos had to be just right." That's when everything crystallized in my mind with painful clarity. All the past canceled events, the times plans had mysteriously fallen through, the family gatherings I'd only discover through social media posts days later. This wasn't just a one-time Christmas mishap. This was a systematic pattern of exclusion that had been going on for years. "How many times?" I asked, my voice dropping to barely a whisper as tears burned behind my eyes. "How many other gatherings have you lied to me about, Mom?" Another telling silence followed. "Then, Megan, you're being oversensitive as usual. This is exactly why what?" I cut her off, my voice gaining strength from somewhere deep inside me. "Why you exclude me? Why you pretend I don't exist unless you need something? Why Heather gets to be the perfect daughter with her 10,000 Instagram followers while I'm treated like an inconvenient obligation? That's not fair," my mother protested, indignation creeping into her voice. "We love you both equally. It's just that Heather actually puts in the effort to be part of the family. You're always so busy with your hospital work." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that surprised even me. "Busy with work? You mean busy paying off the student loans I took for the medical career path you pushed me into? Busy taking 3 full weeks off to care for Dad after his back surgery while Heather posted a single selfie with him and left? You mean that kind of busy?" "Listen," my mother's voice turned icy and stern. "If you're going to be like this, maybe it's better if we give each other some space. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable and stop attacking your sister." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there in the sudden silence of my living room, staring at my phone screen as 34 years of memories suddenly shifted into sharp, painful focus like a camera lens finally finding its proper setting. Every excuse, every dismissal, every misunderstanding, every time I'd been made to feel like I was imagining things, it had all been intentional. I wasn't the problem. I never had been. That was the moment something broke inside me, the moment I stopped making excuses for them, the moment I finally saw the truth with crystal clarity. I didn't have a family. I had people who shared my DNA but treated me like an afterthought, a backup plan, an ATM when needed. Later that evening, after that phone call, something within me fundamentally changed. The constant need for their approval evaporated like morning dew under a harsh sun. I was done being the family doormat, done being the reliable one they could exploit while excluding me from their picture-perfect family moments. With hands that no longer trembled, I opened my laptop and navigated to our family group chat, the one that included my parents, sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who had been at that Christmas dinner. My fingers flew across the keyboard as 34 years of pent-up feelings poured out in carefully chosen words. "I've seen the videos and photos from yesterday's Christmas dinner," I wrote. The dinner I was explicitly told was cancelled due to a dangerous snowstorm that evidently never existed. "I want you all to know exactly what was done here. This wasn't simply excluding me from a family gathering. You collectively coordinated an elaborate lie to make me spend Christmas alone while pretending everyone else was doing the same." I attached screenshots of my mother's "everyone staying home due to the snowstorm" messages alongside Jessica's Facebook Live video showing the clear, sunny day through Heather's apartment windows. I added photos of the handmade gifts I'd prepared for everyone, still sitting wrapped under my small tree. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, my heart pounding but my mind strangely calm. The responses began flooding in almost immediately, notifications pinging one after another. My Aunt Judith claimed they must have forgotten to tell me the plans had changed. Uncle Robert suggested I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Jessica, whose live stream had exposed their collective lie, quickly deleted all her Christmas posts and privately messaged me saying I was causing unnecessary family drama right after such a beautiful holiday. Then came Heather's response, a paragraphs-long, condescending message about how I never make any real effort at family gatherings and how she just wanted one perfect holiday without someone bringing down the mood. She even had the breathtaking audacity to suggest that excluding me was actually for my own benefit because I obviously don't enjoy family gatherings anyway and they were just respecting my preference for solitude. But it was my parents' reaction that truly revealed who they were at their core. Instead of offering even a token apology, they went immediately on the offensive. My mother began calling our mutual family friends, spinning an elaborate story about how I was having some sort of mental health episode and needed everyone's understanding during this difficult time. My father, Douglas, sent me a stern message about respecting family privacy and how publicly airing our dirty laundry was completely unacceptable for someone your age. "You've really done it now," Heather messaged privately. "Mom's crying. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. Everyone's holiday is completely ruined, and it's all because you couldn't just accept that maybe you're the problem. This is exactly why we didn't want you at Christmas in the first place." Family confrontation. I felt like I'd been transported to some bizarre alternate dimension. They had deliberately excluded me, coordinated an elaborate lie involving the entire family, yet somehow I was cast as the villain simply for exposing their deception. The more I stood up for myself and pointed out their behavior, the more aggressively they twisted the narrative. When I refused to back down and apologize for something I hadn't done, they escalated their tactics to frightening levels. My mother Elaine began showing up at the hospital where I worked, unannounced and emotional, causing uncomfortable scenes in the lobby that left my colleagues whispering. Heather ramped up her social media campaign, posting vague but pointed updates about toxic relationships and choosing peace over family drama that her followers eagerly commented on with supportive messages. My father Douglas called with an explicit threat to cut me out of his will entirely if I didn't get back in line and stop this nonsense. Their unified front of intimidation tactics didn't frighten me as they'd intended. Instead, their desperate actions only confirmed what I had finally realized with painful clarity. This wasn't a loving family protecting itself from a difficult member. This was a toxic system frantically scrambling to maintain control over someone who had finally stopped playing by their unspoken rules. I knew then that simply exposing their Christmas lie wasn't enough. I needed to completely sever the invisible chains of manipulation they'd wrapped around me since childhood. Little did they know, as they escalated their public smear campaign against me, I was already forming a plan that would show them exactly what happens when you push away the one person who had always been there for them, supporting them both emotionally and financially. Patricia's revelation: one afternoon about a week after my confrontational group message, my phone lit up with a text from an unexpected source. Patricia, a family friend who had worked as my parents' personal accountant years ago before retiring. The message was simple but urgent. Megan, I've been seeing what's happening with your family all over social media. There's something you need to know that I've kept quiet about for too long. Can we meet privately? My curiosity piqued. I agreed to meet her at her home rather than a public place, sensing from her cautious tone that whatever she needed to share required discretion. When I arrived at her modest suburban house, Patricia looked visibly nervous, her hands fidgeting with a thick manila envelope on her kitchen table. I've been carrying the guilt of this for over a decade, she said, her voice trembling slightly as she slid the envelope across the table. Your father made me swear a legally binding confidentiality agreement, but after seeing how they're treating you publicly now, I can't stay silent anymore. I'll face whatever consequences come. Inside the envelope were meticulously organized bank statements, trust documents, and legal papers dating back 15 years. As I carefully examined them, my hands began to shake uncontrollably. According to these comprehensive records, my grandfather Franklin had left a substantial inheritance specifically designated for my education and future, nearly $300,000 in education and trust funds, plus property investments, money I had never known existed. Your father was appointed as trustee, Patricia explained quietly, pouring us both tea she didn't touch. Franklin was explicit that you were to gain access when you turned 25. Instead, Douglas systematically transferred everything to Heather's accounts and various shell companies, using your inheritance to fund her lifestyle and her string of failed business ventures. The revelation struck me with the force of a physical blow. All those double shifts I'd worked to pay off my student loans from nursing school and medical administration courses. All those years of pinching pennies, living in a tiny apartment, eating ramen while studying. The 3 credit cards I'd maxed out during my final year of school. The ongoing monthly loan payments that still ate nearly a third of my income. And all that time, my parents had been sitting on my inheritance, money specifically meant for my education, while watching me struggle financially, even accepting my help with their mortgage payments when Douglas had medical expenses. There's more, Patricia continued, her professional demeanor cracking to reveal genuine anguish. Franklin also left several investment properties that were meant to be split equally between you and your sister. Your parents liquidated all of them using a power of attorney document they had you sign when you were 18. Do you remember? They told you it was for emergency medical decisions in case something happened while you were away at college. My stomach churned with nausea as the memory surfaced. I'd signed it without question, trusting them completely. That document, I now learned, had given them complete control over my financial interests and inheritance. They had systematically stolen what was legally mine while simultaneously watching me struggle financially, accepting my help with their expenses, and making me feel guilty for not contributing even more to the family. What made it even more sickening were the detailed financial statements showing regular transfers to Heather's accounts, cynically labeled as business development investments, money taken directly from my inheritance to fund her Instagram-ready lifestyle, her luxury apartment, her brand partnerships, all those exotic trips they'd proudly shared and praised while dismissing my hospital administration career as settling for something safe. Why tell me now, after all these years? I asked Patricia, my voice barely maintaining its steadiness as anger and hurt battled within me. Because I've seen your mother's posts claiming you're mentally unstable and ungrateful, she replied, meeting my eyes directly for the first time. They're systematically trying to discredit you before you can possibly discover the truth about your inheritance. They've been embezzling from you for years, Megan. What they've done isn't just morally reprehensible, it's plainly illegal, and as their former accountant, I was unwillingly complicit. Everything suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. Their escalating attempts to paint me as unstable and unreasonable, my father's threats to cut me from a will that contained money that was already rightfully mine, their desperate need to maintain the carefully crafted narrative that Heather was the successful, deserving daughter while I was the difficult, mentally unbalanced one. With trembling hands but newfound resolve, I carefully packed the documents back into the envelope, my mind already processing the information with the analytical precision I'd developed during years of hospital administration work. "Thank you, Patricia," I said, my voice finding new strength. "I know exactly what I need to do now." Building the case, this wasn't just about a ruined Christmas or family exclusion anymore. This was about years of calculated deception, financial exploitation, and outright theft. And fortunately, my work in medical administration, with its emphasis on documentation, compliance, and audit trails, had uniquely qualified me to meticulously build a case that would make them face the consequences of their actions. With Patricia's comprehensive documents as my foundation, I spent the next week building an airtight case. I took time off work, using vacation days I'd been saving for a trip I could never quite afford. Working methodically at my kitchen table, I traced every unauthorized transfer, every misused power of attorney, every fraudulent document. I cross-referenced dates with my own financial records, the student loan applications, the credit card statements, the times I'd helped my parents with their expenses while struggling myself. I organized everything chronologically in 3 separate binders, building a timeline that showed the deliberate pattern of deception. I also contacted Marcus Jordan, a former prosecutor who now specialized in estate fraud and elder abuse cases. His reputation for handling complex family financial cases with both legal precision and sensitivity to family dynamics made him perfect for my situation. After reviewing my organized evidence for several hours in his office, Marcus looked up at me with a grim expression. "This is one of the clearest cases of financial exploitation I've seen in years," he confirmed, his deep voice carrying the weight of his former role as a prosecutor. "We absolutely have grounds to file criminal charges if that's the route you want to pursue. The power of attorney abuse alone is textbook fraud." I weighed my options carefully, considering the full impact of each potential path forward. Filing criminal charges would undoubtedly shatter my family's carefully maintained social standing, but the truth was, they had already destroyed our relationship through years of deception. Despite everything, I decided to give them one final opportunity to make amends. I messaged my parents and Heather, requesting a family meeting to resolve our differences. They responded with surprising eagerness, probably believing they could manipulate me back into my familiar role of silent compliance. We agreed to meet at my house the following Saturday morning. On the day of the meeting, I woke early and prepared meticulously. I arranged 3 identical leather folders on my dining table, one for each family member. Inside each was a comprehensive record of their financial fraud spanning 15 years, along with a formal letter from Marcus Jordan outlining their options in clear legal language: either transfer all remaining funds back to me with interest and sign a legally binding confession of their actions, or face criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and abuse of fiduciary duty. They arrived as a united front, my father's luxury sedan pulling into my driveway precisely at the agreed time. Through my window, I watched them approach my door, their expressions conveying a mixture of condescension and false concern. They clearly expected me to apologize for exposing their Christmas deception, to beg for reconciliation on their terms. Elaine started in the moment they entered my living room, not even waiting to remove her designer coat. Megan, sweetheart, we're so relieved you've come to your senses. We can put this whole unpleasant episode behind us if you just. I cut her off by silently sliding the folders across the table. Before anyone says another word, I strongly suggest you read these documents. All of them. The transformation in their expressions as they reviewed the contents was remarkable. The color drained from my father's face as his banker's eyes recognized exactly what he was looking at. Heather's perfectly manicured hands began visibly trembling as she flipped through page after page of transfer records to her accounts. My mother tried desperately to maintain her composure, but the facade was cracking. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Elaine finally sputtered, attempting to reassert control. "You're actually trying to blackmail your own family. After everything we've done for you." "Blackmail?" I laughed, a cold, sharp sound that surprised even me. "No, Mother. I'm giving you a choice: return my inheritance with interest and formally acknowledge what you did, or I'll let the district attorney's office handle it." Patricia has already signed an affidavit and agreed to testify about her role in the financial arrangements. Patricia had no right, my father exploded, his banker's restraint evaporating. "She signed a confidentiality agreement. This is a breach of professional ethics." "You had no right." I shot back, my voice rising with 14 years of suppressed anger. "You stole from me for years while watching me struggle with student loans. You used a fraudulently obtained power of attorney to sell properties that grandfather explicitly left for me. You funded Heather's Instagram perfect lifestyle with MY inheritance while I worked double shifts to make ends meet." Heather's carefully applied makeup was now streaked with tears. "I didn't know where the money was coming from. They told me it was from Dad's investments. How was I supposed to know?" "Please stop lying," I replied with unnerving calmness, sliding specific documents toward her. "The transfers went directly into your personal accounts with memo lines like Megan's trust distribution. You cashed checks with my name crossed out and yours written in. You signed loan documents against my properties. You knew exactly what you were doing every step of the way." My mother shifted tactics, her charity committee skills of emotional manipulation surfacing. "Think about what this will do to our family's standing in the community. What will people say about us? About you? Do you really want to be known as the daughter who sent her parents to prison? You should have considered that before stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from your own daughter," I responded evenly, not rising to her bait. "You have exactly 48 hours to decide: either sign the confession, arrange the transfers of all remaining funds plus interest as calculated on page 17, or I'm taking everything to the police. The choice is yours." They left in a state of panic, my father practically dragging my sobbing sister and ashen-faced mother out the door. Within hours, the family group chat exploded with messages from relatives and family friends, all predictably taking their side without knowing the actual facts. Accusations of mental instability, ingratitude, and family betrayal flooded my phone. I silenced the notifications and remained calm in the eye of the storm. The truth and documented evidence were on my side. "The ball's in their court now," I told Marcus over the phone that evening, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "But something tells me they're not going to make the right choice." "They rarely do in these cases," he replied with the weariness of experience. "Are you prepared for what comes next if they refuse?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "They've already given me something invaluable: freedom from their manipulation." Just as served, the 48-hour deadline came and went without any response from my family. Just as I had predicted, they chose pride and denial over honesty and restitution. They made no attempt to sign the confession or arrange any transfers as outlined. Instead, according to Patricia's warning calls, they were frantically trying to cover their tracks, closing accounts, shredding documents, and even attempting to pressure her into retracting her statement with threats of legal action. What they didn't realize was that I had already submitted comprehensive copies of everything to the authorities through Marcus's office. The morning after the deadline passed, I formally filed charges with the district attorney's office. By mid-afternoon, the police were serving search warrants at 3 locations simultaneously. From my hospital office, I monitored the developments through texts from Marcus and local news alerts on my phone. My father was escorted from his bank in handcuffs, a shocking fall for a respected branch manager. Heather's social media business was raided, her equipment seized as assets purchased with misappropriated funds. My mother's carefully curated public image shattered as she was arrested during a high-profile charity committee meeting she had been live-streaming for her followers. The family group chat that had been so quick to condemn me days earlier exploded again, but this time with a dramatically different tone. Relatives who had dismissed my claims without evidence were suddenly silent as the details became public record. Those who had called me mentally unstable were now asking what exactly had happened. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about respected family's shocking fall from grace, detailing how the respected bank manager and his charity-involved wife had systematically defrauded their own daughter. My phone buzzed with a simple text from Patricia, "You did the right thing. Franklin would be so proud of your courage." She was right. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about justice and truth. As I watched my family's carefully constructed facade of perfection crumble under the weight of their own actions, I felt no joy or satisfaction, only a profound sense of relief. The truth was finally out, and with it came my freedom from decades of gaslighting and manipulation. Epilogue: 1 year later. 1 year later, I sat by the window in my new home in my grandfather Franklin's hometown, watching snow gently blanket the small town square. The court case had concluded 3 months ago with both my parents accepting plea deals to avoid longer sentences, agreeing to full financial restitution. Heather's influencer career had collapsed under the scandal, and she'd finally taken a regular job as a receptionist at a local gym. The perfect family image they had worked so meticulously to maintain for decades had dissolved overnight. Most of the extended family who had enabled their behavior for years stopped speaking to me entirely, but surprisingly, I found their absence created no emptiness in my life. Instead, I had built something far more valuable, a genuine support system of friends who valued honesty over appearances, colleagues who respected my professional dedication, and even a few distant cousins who reached out to apologize for their unwitting role in the family dynamics. Patricia came to visit last week, driving up from the city despite the threatening weather. Over hot chocolate in my cozy living room, she handed me a weathered photo album she discovered while organizing her home office. "I've been holding on to this for years," she explained. "Franklin gave it to me for safekeeping." Inside were dozens of photographs of my grandfather and me together, fishing trips, science fair projects, quiet moments reading books side by side, precious memories I'd almost forgotten in the painful years that followed. In one particularly touching photo, he was teaching me to fish at the lake near his house, both of us laughing at something now lost to time, my gap-toothed 7-year-old smile beaming up at him with pure adoration. "He always said you were the strong one," Patricia told me, her eyes misty with emotion. "He knew how they favored Heather, but he believed with absolute certainty that you would overcome it. That's why he left you the inheritance, not just to help you financially, but as a statement of his faith in you." I traced my finger gently over his kind, weathered face in the photograph, remembering the security I'd felt in his presence, how he'd always made me feel valued just as I was. He had tried to protect my future through that inheritance, and though it had taken years and come at a tremendous emotional cost, his final gift had ultimately provided something far more valuable than money. The courage to stand up for myself and the freedom to build a life defined by my own values rather than others' expectations. As I looked around at my new home, modest but completely mine, filled with medical textbooks and the watercolor paintings I'd finally allowed myself to create, I realized the profound truth that had emerged from this painful journey. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free.